Good afternoon, Bucknutters. Welcome to What We Learned Live following Ohio State's spring game. Defense looked really good today. I think the rules were set up in their favor. I'll get to much more of that, but the defense won 40-31. Gray 40, Scarlet 31, and a lot to get into. I'm going to give some initial thoughts on what we learned and what I learned specifically. We're going to hear from Bill Kurelic in about 15 minutes. He's going to join the show talking recruiting right around 2:20 Eastern time. If you're listening somewhere else in the country or anywhere around the world, 2:20 Eastern, we get Bill Kurelic on, and then whenever post-game interviews are over, Steve Helwagen and Patrick Murphy will join me to share their insights. And then I'll let you guys know if you have questions, please don't post them yet because I probably won't see them. I'll let you know when I'm going to field some questions, and you guys can fire away with any questions you have. Appreciate you guys joining me. So a lot to get into. I tell you what, one thing that was really cool today, and there was some people that maybe there were some groans in the press box that weren't crazy about it because it made a mockery of the spring game. I love seeing Archie Griffin score that touchdown because now, my friends, I can always say I saw Archie Griffin score a touchdown in the horseshoe. Okay, it's kind of cheating, but I don't care. I barely missed them. Archie. Well, I was born in '76, so I would have. Even if I was born during his time, I would have missed it. But or even if he was still there in '76, although I followed Buckeye football religiously from a very young age. I remember being 6 years old in 1982, and I remember that team well. That's the first Buckeye team that I really knew well. I was 6 years old. Marcus Merrick, Tim Spencer, those guys, John Frank, 1982. So, but I barely missed Archie. My mom and dad were actually here for his coming out party. I think it was against North Carolina when he was a true freshman. They're like, "Who's this little Archie guy, this freshman in 1972?" We know the rest. All right, so I'm off on a tangent there. It was cool seeing Archie score that touchdown. Let's get to Kyle McCord. These are unofficial. I have this down as 18 of 33 for 186 yards, 1 touchdown, no interceptions. All right. I thought he was shaky in the first half. I thought he was lucky he didn't have a couple balls picked. I thought he played better in the second half, which he needed to. Couple things here. Now, his touchdown pass to Carnell Tate, I think, didn't save the day for him, but I think he needed that confidence. You don't want to leave the spring game with no touchdowns and, not a great completion percentage. Again, 18 of 33 is what I had. Somebody in the press box had 18 of 34. Steve Helwagen had 18 of 32. So somewhere right around there. I had 18 of 33. So 186 yards, 1 touchdown, no interceptions. Now, that included at least 2 drops that I charted and at least 3 throwaways. So of his 33-ish, or excuse me, of his 15 incompletions, if I'm right, 15 incompletions, at least 5 of them are not his fault. 2 drops and then throwing the ball away is smart. Another thing that hurts the quarterbacks in this game, and another reason this was so tilted toward the defense, is if a defensive player got a fingertip on the quarterback, they were down. And not only did that mean the quarterback was down and now you're facing 2nd and long or 3rd and long or you have to punt, the defense gets points for that, right? They get 2 points for every sack. And furthermore, it prevents quarterbacks from doing things like moving around in the pocket, shaking off that guy that just brushes you, moving around and then making the play, or when they would take off and run. Sometimes it looked like McCord, to me, has decent mobility. He's not going to beat you with his legs, but he's what I thought he would be. Like he can, if you don't give him any respect, he can do a rollout and beat you, but they weren't being tackled today. So that was another thing that hurt the offense. It's like as soon as the quarterback was touched, he's down. So he can't really be a playmaker. I get it. You don't want to get Kyle McCord hurt in the spring game. Speaking of the early 80s, that's how Mike Tomczak broke his leg, was in the spring game. So that's back when they just went balls to the wall. They did that in the Tressel era too, for the most part. I think he started to pare that down late, but they used to play like a regular game, as you guys know, I'm sure. But yeah, Mike Tomczak broke his leg. I think it was the 83 spring game. So I get it. But my point is, I think you got to take McCord's stats with a grain of salt. Now, you don't have to take what you saw with a grain of salt. There were some passes that were errant. He even had a bad pass to Jaden Ballard that Jaden Ballard saved him on. Jaden Ballard made a hell of a catch. 9 yards to number 9 over there on the sideline. From the press box, it looked like there was no way that he was going to catch it. And still, when we saw the replay, it still was a very tough catch. But from our angle, because he was like right under us, it looked like there was no way he was going to catch that ball. So I mentioned that he had a couple of McCord's receivers had a couple of drops. He had some throwaways, but he also had a couple balls that were not thrown well that his guys caught. So I don't know. So I don't think we learned that much about Kyle McCord. I really don't. He didn't have a stellar day. He didn't have a terrible day. He had an okay day. Maybe some of you guys think he had a terrible day. We'll get to your questions later. I just don't want you guys to overreact too much because, again, I think this was just set up. It's tough to play quarterback in a setting like that, again, where you cannot be a playmaker at all. I'm not talking about taking off like Justin Fields and running for 50 yards. I just mean, again, Ben Roethlisberger-esque. I don't like the Steelers, but got to give Big Ben props for this. He's like the best I've seen. Would he be slow in a 40-yard dash? Yes. I mean, Kyle McCord would be decent in a 40-yard dash for a quarterback. Roethlisberger was slow, but what did he do really, really well? Guy would come in, looks like he's going to get the sack. Roethlisberger just brushes him off. Boom. He did this with my Bengals all the time, and then would make a play. So that was off the table completely today. And then, again, the defense, not only do you get a sack, you get 2 points. So that they made up for a little bit by giving the free 7 to the offense with the touchdown to Archie. That's why when somebody in the press box was like, oh, they're making a mockery of the game. I'm like, first of all, that was maybe the coolest thing I've seen in a spring game was Archie Griffin out there scoring a touchdown. Second of all, the rules were set up to favor the defense. So I have no problem with the offense getting those free 7 points. So, yeah, we'll see what happens. But overall, I thought the defense had a good day. There's no doubt about it. You got to tip your cap, even though I've talked about this for the first 6 minutes of the podcast, that the offense, the rules, in my opinion, were set up to favor the defense. Still, the defense played well. And we're going to get to some of the individual guys I thought played well. I think I charted a total of 6 sacks. Tyleek Williams had a sack. Caden Curry had a sack. Kenyatta Jackson had a sack. Kenyatta Jackson and Caden Curry continue to look good. Those guys are your backup defensive ends. You're really, really good at the end. You got the starters with Tuimoloau and Sawyer, of course, and then Jackson and Caden Curry continue to look really good. Jackson's the one that's made the big jump. Curry looked good to me last year. He came in ready to go physically, Jackson needed to fill out, and he wasn't here last spring. He didn't roll till June. Now he's added 17 pounds. Kenyatta Jackson, as I keep saying, he looks like he's straight out of Central Casting for a rush end. 6'5", long arms, quick, and now he's 252 pounds, and he's ready to go. So I like seeing that. Hero Canoe had a sack. Ty Hamilton had a sack. Again, sack. But some of those would have been sacks. Tuimoloau had a really good move that he barely missed a sack when he beat I believe it had to be Josh Fryer. They were doing a lot of rotating. That's another thing we learned. They were doing a ton of rotating. For example, I was curious to see who would get the first. By the way, I'm sitting here in the visitors radio booth. I had trouble finding a good spot to do the podcast. Not a great view for you guys. If you want to see Ohio Stadium, I could do that for you. There it is. Woo. But not a great view for you guys. If you look at my face instead of seeing the Ohio Stadium field in the background. But yeah, the defense definitely dominated, and there was a ton of rotating. I mean, right tackle, Zen Michalski got the first rep when the ones first went out there. And I do think that means something. Even though Zen and Tegra ended up rotating almost evenly. The next time, Tegra went out there with the twos the first time at right tackle. Zen was with the ones when the ones went out there the first time. And then when the ones went back out there for the second time, Tegra just stayed out there. So he was going with the ones, and then Zen was with the twos next time. So too close to call it right tackle, but looks to me like Zen Michalski has a little bit of an edge leaving spring. He started the spring game for a reason. Carson Hinsman took almost all of his reps with the ones. I almost wrote down Vic Cutler getting all his reps with it. In fact, I did write that down. Vic Cutler getting all his reps with the twos. So we know Hinsman's locked down the starting job. Then, of course, Cutler did rotate in there a little bit with the ones, but not nearly as much as they rotated at right tackle. So right tackle is still unsettled, in my opinion, clearly, with all the rotating they were doing, basically even with those guys, with Tegra and Zen. But center's locked down. I mean, I don't think we saw enough rotating to think Vic Cutler's really that close to Carson Hinsman. Maybe there's not a huge gap, but I think Hinsman, like I've said about McCord all spring, not like there's a huge gap between McCord and Brown. And it's too bad we didn't see Devin Brown today, right? Really could get a gauge on how he looked using these exact same rules that McCord had to play under. And another thing, even though McCord got to throw the ball 3 times to Marvin Harrison Jr., that was it. I predicted 2. I took the under, I guess, at 2.5 and lost. Marvin was out there for 3 plays, caught 3, well, maybe more than 3 plays, maybe 5 plays, caught 3 balls, and then he was done. So not only are you without Emeka Egbuka, you're without Julian Fleming, you're without Xavier Johnson, and then you get, a sprinkling of Marvin Harrison Jr. And did you notice who the DBs were out there? All the good DBs were out there. Denzel Burke continues to look good to me. Davis Nigbinosin looks good. Didn't notice Jordan Hancock that much. I'll have to go back and watch the game. I miss so much when I'm watching it live from the press box. Not the best view in the world. It's great being here, but it's not the best view in the world. But yeah, Sonny Styles. I thought Sonny Styles had that hit on Noah Rogers. That's a welcome to college football hit. And you remember Sonny's the same age as Noah. Sonny should be a true freshman right now. So Sonny Styles, they've got to find a way to get him in the starting lineup. I don't like the fact that we're leaving spring and they still have the best safety on the team running with the twos. Like they need, and I'm not worried about it though, I guess, because I know what I saw. They even played him a lot against Georgia as a true freshman, okay? And that's when they had Ronnie Hickman and some, McAllister and other guys I don't even have now. I have to think Styles is going to start. I don't get it. And I know him and Ransom played the same position, and Ransom's had a good spring, and Cam Martinez has had a good spring. But Proctor, I'm not. There's no way I'm buying that all of a sudden is a sixth-year senior. And maybe I'm wrong. I hope I'm wrong, because at the very least, depth is very good. I'm not buying at Proctor it's going to come together as a sixth-year senior. I know what I've seen out of Sonny Styles, and he's just going to get better. I mean, what he did as a true freshman, and didn't get a ton of playing time, but he played a lot against Georgia and played well. What he did as a true freshman, when he still should have been a senior in high school, I mean, he could explode this year, next year at the latest. So I need to see Sonny Styles in the lineup. I like what I saw out of him today. CJ Hicks, again, I love CJ Hicks. It's almost a blessing in disguise, so to speak, even though I like Steele Chambers and glad he's coming back and he'll be the starter. It's almost a blessing in disguise that Steele had a minor injury. It's just a minor injury. It's not going to keep him out long. Then CJ Hicks got to take all these first-team reps, not just today, which is good, but like all those scrimmages leading up to this. Most of them. Steele was in there, I think, for the first scrimmage or two scrimmages of the spring that we got to see, and then CJ was in there for the last two or three. So important first-team reps for CJ Hicks. He'll be the backup to Steele entering camp. Maybe he can win the job, although I thought Steele had a really good year last year. I'll be surprised if Steele is benched as a fifth-year senior, but maybe Jim Knowles will rotate a little bit more this year at linebacker. By that, I mean rotate a little bit more at will. They did rotate at will last year, though, with Cody Simon, even though Steele really ended up playing the majority of snaps by the end of the year, as you guys know. They did rotate a little bit at will to begin the season, so I won't be surprised, especially with James Laurinaitis now around and another voice in the room. If they think C.J. Hicks is ready and it's close between him and Steele, they'll find a role for C.J. Hicks. But Styles has to start, in my opinion, has to. I would say what I've seen from Igbinosun, he has to start too, but they've got three really good corners. Denzel Burke, as advertised, had a bad year last year compared to his true freshman year. I think now as a junior, he's going to have a big year. We see it all the time with Ohio State corners. That third year is when things really click. Remember, people thought Denzel Ward wasn't good until his junior year. People didn't think Garyon Conley was good until his junior year. Those guys are first-round picks, and you can argue Garyon Conley shouldn't have been a first-round pick, but he was. And, it was that third year. Even Marshawn Lattimore, people forget this. Hurt as a true freshman, so didn't play, redshirted. As a redshirt freshman, barely played. He had those, it was a hamstring or knee, I can't remember. I think it might have been hamstrings, surgery on both. Barely played as a redshirt freshman and didn't look good. And then as a third-year sophomore, Marshawn Lattimore had like a fantastic year. And look at him now. He's one of the best corners in the NFL. Again, another example of a guy that didn't do much his first 2 years and explodes as a third-year guy at corner. Denzel Burke's accomplished a lot more than those guys have leading up to this year. Okay, so I think Denzel Burke's going to have a big year. I like Jordan Hancock, even though, again, I didn't see much out of him today. I'll have to go back and look. I've liked Igbinosun all spring. He's tall, rangy. He plays the ball well, and he's not afraid to tackle. You see him, he'll dart in there. He uses his – maybe you shouldn't do this as much as they used to, but he darts in there, uses his helmet to take out guys low. I like that. Reminds me of Antoine Winfield a little bit. Not that he's going to be Antoine Winfield, who's the best tackling cornerback in the history of this sport, in my opinion. Had over 100 tackles one year and led the team in tackles. When you see that happen for a really good Ohio State team, when you see a corner lead the team in tackles, have over 100 tackles, when Antoine Winfield's badasses out there, that's when. So, Davison Igbinosun's not Antoine Winfield. He's much taller. He's not going to come in and just be a crushing tackler like Winfield was. But he's not afraid to tackle. When I see a 6'2", lanky corner, I think, how physical is he going to be? He's physical. That's why he was a freshman All-American at Ole Miss last year. Great get by the Buckeyes. Great get. All right, what else did we learn here? I took so many copious notes here. Paris Johnson Jr. here recruiting. Another cool thing, seeing Archie score the touchdown. My first time seeing Archie score a touchdown in the horseshoe was the coolest thing. Seeing Paris Johnson Jr. here recruiting, talking to offensive lineman, the number one player in the country in the 2025 class. The offensive lineman out of Charlotte is here, and Paris was talking his ear off. I love that. And it was really cool seeing Marvin Harrison Jr. and Paris Johnson Jr. get honored. And as consensus All-Americans, they will get Buckeye trees. Marv will probably get 2 Buckeye trees. Is that how it works, Bill Kurelic? Bill Kurelic joins the show, everybody. Bill, welcome in.
Always my pleasure, Dave. What a day in the shoe. 80 and sunny.
Yeah, and almost 80,000. Even there was 77,000 or 75,000 and change. And as I put on Twitter, 75,000 and change for a spring game, even if it was free, would be impressive. The fact that people had to pay $7 to get in at least. There's also $15 and $25 or $30 premium seats. That's very, very impressive, even for Buckeye Nation standards.
Yeah, give you a little comparison. And I don't know exactly what it's like right now, but I saw a picture of shortly before the start of Penn State's spring game. And it is raining there, I'll say that. But it looked like there was almost nobody in the stands. And I compared that to what, you and I just experienced in Ohio Stadium, and what a difference.
No doubt about it. All right, let's cut to the chase. You're here to talk recruiting. Give me some good news. What's the main thing that we need to know about recruiting today?
Well, first of all, Ohio State got a commitment, and it's a good one. Max LeBlanc, a tight end from Chattanooga, Tennessee. He announced basically right at kickoff time of the Ohio State spring game that he's a Buckeye. And Keenan Bailey is going to be an outstanding tight end recruiter for Ohio State. He helped out Brian Hartline, and he did more than help him out. He helped him out a lot. Keenan Bailey's a very good recruiter, and you're going to see that transformed into tight end recruiting now for Ohio State. Max LeBlanc is a 6'5", about 235-pounder who catches the ball well, can block. He's a really good fit for Ohio State's offense. And added bonus, Ohio State beat Michigan for him. One of his finalists.
Oh, I like that.
Yeah, one of his finalists was Michigan. He had a Final Four. Basically, it was going to come down to Ohio State or Tennessee at the end. So Keenan Bailey went into the state of Tennessee, took a guy that the Volunteers really wanted to keep at home, and then he also beat out Michigan for LeBlanc's services. And LeBlanc, by the way, is actually from Canada. So getting back to –
It sounds like a French-Canadian name, LeBlanc.
Yeah, getting back to the north, you knew that could happen. In Michigan, that's even closer to Canada than Ohio State is, obviously. So big win for Ohio State on the recruiting trail.
Yeah, they share a border with Canada, maritime border. I guess we technically do. When I was at, Kelly's Island, it said "Welcome to Canada" a few years ago. I guess we share the Lake Erie border with Canada. Good get for the Buckeyes. I love hearing that you're getting an out-of-state, top tight end, and they beat Michigan for him. I love it. All right, what do you got next? What's the next biggest thing we need to know?
Well, it was really good seeing Aaron Nolan in the shoe today. He obviously is the great quarterback that committed to Ohio State, and you got Jeremiah Smith, 5-star wide receiver, and then I think you mentioned him just as I was coming on here, the number one player in the country for the class of 2025, offensive lineman David Sanders from North Carolina. He was with his family in the shoe today, and obviously a lot of people recruiting him for the Buckeyes. And that's not going to be an easy get, but he's not. If he's not interested, he doesn't make this trip to Ohio State today.
That's right. And I tell you what, I just keep asking you to give me the next biggest thing. But one thing that I saw that I really liked, I'm sure I know you were here for a while. You probably saw it too. I saw Paris Johnson Jr. I love this kid. He's out there recruiting his butt off. As you told me yesterday before I did the podcast, the number one player in the country in the 2025 class, the offensive tackle from Charlotte, was here, and I saw Paris talking his ear off, recruiting him for the Buckeyes. So good on Paris. What can you tell us about the number one player in the 2025 class?
Well, I think Sanders is pretty open. I as I mentioned, he had all his, a lot of family with him today, and that's always a good sign.
Yep.
And they look like they were having a great time. How could you not be? It's as you mentioned, 75 plus thousand, 75 degree plus weather, nothing but sun, just a great all around atmosphere. So a very opportune time to get David Sanders at Ohio State.
What's the latest with the 3-star running back that transferred to is it Pick Central or Pick North?
He's at Pickerington North. Sam Williams Dixon. He's at Pickerington North. Yeah,
Pick North? Okay.
He's at Pick North. He's from Millersburg, West Holmes is where he played previously, but now he is at Pickerington North and tells me he loves it there. And it's a step up, certainly, from Millersburg, West Holmes, but he's talented enough that he'll make that step up, and he'll make it really, really well. And I continue to have him on commitment watch for Ohio State.
I love it. I love it. All right, what about the safety from Centerville, that human hit stick? Is it Reggie? What
Reggie Powers.
Reggie Powers. Yes, Reggie Powers. What's the latest with him?
Yep, down there from your neck of the woods, Dave.
Well, Beaver Creek and Centerville don't get along, but
that's all right. They're nearby, at least. So, Reggie Powers was at the game today. I don't think, as I put on my article this morning, I don't look for him to commit to Ohio State at this point, but certainly, obviously, he likes the Buckeyes, or he wouldn't have been in the shoot today. And he's a guy that Ohio State has been recruiting as a safety.
Yeah, so I mean, even if he doesn't commit today, it seems like, I don't want to say fait accompli, especially in front of you. There's no such thing in recruiting, right? But I'll be very surprised.
No locks.
When's the last time Ohio State wanted a player from Centerville that they didn't get? That's what I'm saying about like really anybody, like Wayne, Springfield, anybody from the Dayton area. I'm trying to think the last one that they really wanted from the Dayton area that they didn't get. There's got to be one. There's been players from Trotwood that have gone to Michigan, but they weren't recruited by Ohio State. That's why I'm not worried about the kid from Springfield. I'm certainly not worried about the kid from Glenville, any of them. And I'm not worried about the kid from Centerville because the Dayton area in general is so good to the Buckeyes. And then you have the history of Centerville with all the Buckeyes that have come from Centerville. Herb Street, A.J. Hawk, and many others. So,
my goodness, Kirk Herbstreit was the number one player in the first edition of my Ohio football recruiting. It was the first year I did this, 36 years ago. My number one player was Kirk Herbstreit.
Who was number two?
I do not know that.
I put you on the spot there. Well, also, as you know, Kirk Herbstreit was the first player that John Cooper landed, first recruit that John Cooper landed as Ohio State's head coach. It was really cool the other night. I wasn't there, but Tim May, our friend Tim May, you're friends with Tim as well, posted a video. Thank God he did, because I don't think anybody else did, of all the coaches up there, Ohio State coaches up there together. I don't think it's ever happened before. You had Coop. I'm not a big Coop fan, but I still think it's cool. I think he's a good man. I think it's cool he's stuck around. You had Coop, Tress, Urban, and Ryan Day up there all together. It was so cool. After this show, everybody, not right now, after this show, get on Tim May's Twitter and watch that because it's really cool.
Kind of the Mount Rushmore there, wasn't it?
Well, I mean, Cooper was there too. Cooper ain't making Mount Rushmore.
Well, yeah. That's true. That's true.
Topic for a different day. All right, recruiting. All right, let's get back to recruiting. What else do we need to know?
Well, I think that Ohio State staff did a great job this spring of getting so many of their top targets and guys that could become targets on campus, either a March visit, an April practice visit, or the spring game today. I think they did a fantastic job, Mark Pantoni and his staff, of getting guys on campus. And obviously, they've been on this recruiting roll. They've gone from number 17 in the country to number 2 in the country in a matter of weeks here. But they've also laid a lot of great groundwork that some of these guys are not going to be committing in the next month, say. They're going to want to take official visits. And if you look at the weeks of June 16th and June 23rd, those 2 weekends, there are some great players visiting Ohio State, making official visits, already have their official visits locked in. The Ohio State staff is really, it's hard to say that Pantoni and his staff are ever not ahead of their game, because they always seem to be, but they're even more ahead of their game this year.
And one thing I'm hearing, I'm sure you are as well, Ohio State feels immensely better about the NIL situation than they did even 4 or 5 months ago. For example, when we met with Ryan Day, I was on a podcast yesterday talking about this. I was asked, so I'm hearing Ohio State's really far behind in NIL. I said, well, if you would have asked me that 2 months ago, I might have agreed. But I gave the example. We met with Ryan Day on early signing day. Obviously, he was talking up his guys, but he made it clear. I mean, they, in so many words, he said they basically lost out on 3 or 4 guys that they definitely would have gotten if not for NIL. That they, as you know, they had guys gave them silent commits and then backed out. But now it seems like Ohio State is doing a much better job in the NIL. A new collective just popped up. The foundation's doing great things. They have this huge event this Thursday. It's going to be amazing. Their spring festival this coming Thursday is going to be amazing. So the NIL at Ohio State is doing a good job. These recruits talk to each other. So Jelani Thurman's telling Aaron Nolan, yeah, they're not going to give you upfront money, but I enrolled the next day. I got a check and a car. He's telling these guys that. So they know Ohio State's going to take care of you not a year after you enroll or 6 months. As soon as you enroll, you're going to get taken care of. That's one. Two, I think this helps, Bill. I'm curious to get your thoughts on this. I think kids are now seeing that there's some bait and switch out there with the NIL, that the kid from Florida that went to Florida, the quarterback, was promised millions, and then they reneged on it and he went elsewhere. That helps Ohio State too, because these schools that are promising upfront money, are these kids now not buying it? Anyway, I just get the impression, and I've heard from sources, Ohio State feels much better about their situation with NIL. What are you hearing?
Yeah, and to go back to one of your points, that very first year of the NIL, there were a number of situations and all around the country where I was hearing, kids are finding out this isn't exactly what they were promised. And they got to the schools, and it wasn't what was promised as far as what they were going to get. And those schools being named were not Ohio State. I think Ohio State's done a good job of doing what they said they're going to do and following through. And as you mentioned, they did a really smart thing, a really good thing, is that if there were kids that NIL-wise were not going to fit their model, they tried to filter those kids out early, so that they're recruiting, seriously recruiting kids that fit their NIL model and are okay with their NIL model. And I think that's going to end up transforming into a situation not like last year where they missed out on some kids at the end, like you mentioned, because of that.
Excuse me. Somebody saying, I said, when's the last time Ohio State missed out on a kid from Dayton, the Dayton area that they really wanted?
Yep.
Jackson Carman doesn't count in my book. He's closer to Cincinnati. Jackson Carman, his high school is closer to Cincinnati.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, he was a fair. Yeah, he no question.
Cincinnati Fairfield. Yeah, we played them many times. They were really good in baseball when I was in high school. They won the state championship one year, D1. There is one that I forgot about. Turns out he wasn't a big miss, though, as Evan Spencer could say, because he knocked him out of the way, and another guy in Zeke's 85-yard run, and that was Trey DePriest. That was the last one. You're absolutely right, Sean Duffy. Trey DePriest from Springfield. I just said I was never going to worry about Springfield. I forgot about Trey DePriest. That's because he was a bust at Alabama. Everybody wanted Trey DePriest. Turns out, they'll be just fine with Darren Lee and Raekwon McMillan at linebacker and Curtis Grant and those guys. What was else I going to ask you? I was going to get you out of here on this. So Ryan Day even said when we met him on Wednesday, I mean, he certainly, you can tell he feels better about NIL. He was asked about that, as I mentioned. He also said, we're going to get a big class. Expound on that. Ryan Day, I don't usually hear him say stuff like that. We're going to get a big class, and we feel good about some of the guys we're in on.
Well, yeah, I mean, they're going to be around 20, 25, I think, when all is said and done. Typically, they get in the 20 to 22, 23 range the last few years. But this year, I think they're going to hit at least that and probably a little more. They've got a great start. They basically have got their backbone of the class, so to speak. LeBlanc committing today made 11. So they're almost halfway right now. And, we're only mid-April. So, yeah, it's going to be a big class. And as Ryan Day also said, not only is it going to be big numbers-wise, but he said it's going to be quality too, and I agree with that. If you look at the composite right now, Ohio State is not only number 2 in the country, but if you look at player average, how good these players are averaged out, Ohio State's number 2 in the country there as well. So it's good numbers-wise, and it's good talent-wise.
I lied to you. I do have one more question. I remember what I was going to ask you now. Or maybe I don't remember. It just slipped my mind again. It'll come back to me. Stay with me for a second. It'll come back to me. What was I going to ask you? Oh, goodness gracious. I just had a complete brain freeze here. Oh, goodness gracious. Well, maybe it won't come back to me. What the heck was I going to ask you? Oh, well, this is terrible podcasting. I'll let you go.
I would while you're thinking there, so, tell everyone we want to stay tuned to Bucknuts all weekend long. Commitments might not be over. There's going to be plenty of reaction from all those recruits that were in Ohio Stadium today. And there's going to be a lot of content on Bucknuts the rest of today, tomorrow, Monday, Tuesday, about this big recruiting weekend.
Hearing your voice made my brain turn back on.
Oh, right.
Right back on. I was going to ask you about the transfer portal real quick. We'll get you out here on this. I've heard from very good sources that Ohio State's definitely going to go after offensive tackles in the portal, and they feel good about their chances of getting at least one. What are you hearing on that front? What can you tell the listeners and viewers about that?
I think it's pretty obvious that the offensive line, and in particular tackle, is where the needs are right now. They lost two off tackles that are going to be, well, one certainly a first-round draft choice, Paris Johnson, a high first-round draft choice, and DeJuan Jones may go in the first round as well too. So that's where their needs are, and I think they're going to go as hard as they can to get at least one offensive tackle that potentially could step in and be an impact guy. They've done a good job in the years past. Remember when they needed a guard? They went on and got Jonah Jackson that year, and he was key to that offensive line being so good. So, yeah, they target their areas, and that's the area to target.
I love it. Bill, you came strong. Great day for Buckeye recruiting. Got a commit. Got LeBlanc in the class, tight end. Maybe they'll get another one today. We'll see. Buckeye recruiting is going great. He is the dean of Ohio State football recruiting, Bill Kurelic. My friend, thank you very much for joining me.
Always great to join you, Dave, and you're doing an outstanding job as usual, and I'll let you get to the rest of the show.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate that. He is the dean, the legend himself, Bill Kurelic. And post-game interviews just ended, so we'll be hearing from Patrick Murphy and Steve Helwagen shortly. Let's get to some more stuff that I learned, and then eventually I'll take questions. I'll let you guys know. I'm sure you have a lot of questions already in there. I know we have a lot of people. We got a big audience, which I love. Thank you so much for you guys. We're not stopping yet. We're gonna be here for a while. We ain't even close to stopping yet. This is gonna be a long show. So this is not your typical Bucknuts Morning 5, which is really the Bucknuts Morning 25, but. Okay, so second team offensive line. I took so many notes here. It's crazy. Oh, yeah, Hicks also had a sack, almost had an interception. CJ Hicks. And I like Steel, as I said earlier, I like Steel Chambers. I'm not saying you bench Steel Chambers, but find a way to get CJ Hicks out there too. Rotate them a little bit if you think Chambers is better, but there's a very narrow gap, to make sure 60-40, whatever it is, do it. Do it. We know Tommy's not going to leave the field, and he shouldn't. Thank God Tommy came back. All right, so they did a ton of rotating. So, but when the twos for, I already mentioned the first team offensive line, it was as expected, except we knew at right tackle that was the one that was, we knew the four left to right, and then who's going to be the first team right tackle. Today it was Zen going first, but him and Tegra rotated, as I said. So it's too close to call it right tackle right now. Again, we just talked about the portal. If I had to bet right now, I think they're going to get a tackle in the portal, and that'll be the starting right tackle. And then Zen and Tegra will be the backup tackles. Right now, George Fitzpatrick, who actually looks pretty solid as a redshirt freshman, has been the backup left tackle and got some run with the ones today when they gave Josh Fryer a rest. I think Josh Fryer is going to be good at left tackle. He's not going to be Paris Johnson Jr., but he'll be good. And but yeah, so second team O-line was, but again, it's too close to call at right tackle, but I won't be surprised. In fact, I just told you, if I had to bet, I think it'll be whoever they get as a transfer will be the starting right tackle. We'll see. All right, second team offensive line when they first went out there. Fitzpatrick at left tackle, Chrisman at left guard, Vic Cutler at center. Again, Cutler got a little bit of time with the ones, but not much. Hinsman's your starting center, there's no doubt about that. Enoch Vamahi, fifth-year senior, who actually has 2 years of eligibility left because of the COVID year. Good depth there. Enoch Vamahi running with the twos. And then again, Tegra Shabola began with the twos, but they rotated. Running back, I thought Chip Trainum looked good all spring. Of course, his touchdown run today was impressive. He tiptoes the sideline. He's got speed for a 230-pound back, and he's tough to tackle. That's a damn good combination in my book. You're 230 pounds, you're tough to tackle, you run hard, and you're fast as heck. I mean, they said last year when we asked the linebackers, actually Doug Lamerie, so I'll have to give him credit. Cleveland.com was asking, like, linebacker superlatives, which I thought was good. And he was asking the different linebackers, who's the fastest of the linebackers? They were all like, Chip. This is when Chip was a full-time linebacker. Who is the strongest of the linebackers? They were like, Chip. I was like, man, stronger than Tommy? Okay. All right. I see you. Because I shouldn't be surprised. Chip's like 5'11". I'm sure he can bench a ton. Those guys with shorter arms. Tommy's more like 6'2", a little bit longer arms. Those guys that are like rocked up at 5'11" can bench a ton. So I guess I shouldn't be surprised he was the strongest of the linebackers. I was also kind of surprised he was the fastest of the linebackers. I thought even as a true freshman, it might be CJ Hicks or somebody like that. my point is Chip Trayanum, if he's your number 3 tailback, I mean, that's good, or number 4. Dallin Hayden was good last year. I think he's going to be better as a sophomore. It's reasonable to assume he will be better as a sophomore than a true freshman, especially now that he's added 10 pounds. You're going to get Travion Henderson back. Mayan Williams was the first back to go with the ones, didn't play very much. He's going to be involved. And we're going to hear from Patrick Murphy. It was also good to hear, or good to see that it was good to see during warmups. We're going to bring in Patrick Murphy. I'm going to finish my thought here. Hello, Patrick. I'm just going to finish my thought, then we'll get your thoughts. It was really good during warmups. I saw, Travion Henderson and Evan Pryor were in full uniform. Evan Pryor, no knee brace on. They're out there cutting, running, catching passes. I won't say they're going full speed, but pretty close. And I think it's very good news. Evan Pryor coming off that torn patellar tendon, which is a 6 to 12 month recovery, not even wearing a knee brace. I think that's a very good sign. And then Travion Henderson, same deal. And same thing with Emeka Egbuka and Julian Fleming and all those guys. They were in full uniform during warmups, looking like they were going full speed. So real good news there. All right, Patrick Murphy, welcome in. What's the biggest storyline? What do you think was the biggest storyline today?
I think it is a close toss-up between the quarterback play and the offensive line. And I think the two go fairly hand in hand, right? I mean, you're going to need the offensive line to play better if the quarterback is going to have success. If there's going to be any offensive success, really. So I think, it wasn't convincing today. I think we can safely say that on both fronts. I think that there will obviously be some overreaction to one spring game, but Ryan Day just said, in terms of the quarterback play, this is kind of what we've seen throughout spring practice. I think if you were to ask anybody who was at any of the practices we were at, you would say probably the same, that it was inconsistent. Both guys. We only saw Kyle McCord today. And the offensive line play, look, there's got to be some serious development here on the tackle positions before fall camp or by the start of the season. Whether that's these guys stepping up and developing, and I wrote about this week. Ryan Day said if you'd asked him this time a year ago, Paris Johnson was a guy that he wasn't entirely sold on as could he be the type of left tackle they needed. He made a big jump. And obviously Paris was a 5-star guy and has all the tools and is going to be a high pick in the NFL draft. But they need these guys to take a similar level of jump. Just maybe you're not going to necessarily be Paris Johnson. It'd be great if they were, but you need guys to make those type of improvements. So those are the two things for me coming out of it. I think, there's a lot of other things we could talk about, but if you're asking me the biggest things, I think that's, in terms of a concern level, that's where I kind of stand coming out of spring.
Let's get into Kyle McCord. Our final stats have been released. Okay, so he was 18 of 34 officially, 18 of 34 for 184 yards, 1 touchdown, no interceptions. Took 3 sacks. What do you make of this? I counted at least 3 times he had to throw the ball away. So of his 16 incompletions, I said 15 earlier. I had it at 18 of 33. 18 of 34 is what it was. So of his 16 incompletions, at least 3 were thrown away, and he had 2 drops. But a lot of underneath passes and a lot of errant throws, especially early in the game. And even one of his completions to Jaden Ballard, as you're sitting there right next to me, it didn't look like he was going to be able to catch that ball. It wasn't a good throw, and Ballard just saved him by making a heck of a catch. But then McCord had some good throws, I thought, in the second half. The touchdown to Cardinal Tate, I think he needed that as a confidence boost. You don't want to leave the spring. Like, people are already questioning Kyle McCord. Imagine if he didn't have that play. So, overall, where are you at on McCord?
I wouldn't say I'm sold. I think there have been some good moments, as you mentioned, and Ryan Day pointed out that these guys don't have their full complement of weapons. Marvin Harrison Jr., who had 2 nice catches from Kyle McCord, only played a little bit today. No Emeka Egbuka, no Julian Fleming. So, if we're comparing Kyle McCord to C.J. Stroud a year ago, A, he doesn't have the experience, and B, he doesn't have the receivers out there. But I would have liked to see Kyle perform a little bit better throughout the spring. This is a 5-star kid. He hasn't been playing a ton these last couple of years, but I just expected a little bit more, if I'm being honest. Now, as you and I were talking at halftime or shortly thereafter about what I'm going to write, Justin Fields struggled in his spring game before his first year as a starter. It was not a good day. As Ryan Day said this week, the numbers look a little bit better because he had a big pass towards the end of the game. But that turned out all right, right? So, like, I don't think this is the end of the world that Kyle McCord didn't come out and just put on a show today. But I do think it's a valid reason for Buckeye fans to be a little nervous. I think you should trust what Ryan Day has done in the past, their evaluation as how in terms of how he's recruited these guys and his ability to develop them. But yeah, it's certainly not like you walk out of this building today and think that's the guy, he's the quarterback, the offense is going to be just fine.
I thought Chip looked good all spring, and then he had obviously the long run, which is really going to make his stats. These are like high school stats, averaging 13.8 yards a carry. It's like you see a kid in high school go off, 13.8 yards per carry. I mean, only 8 carries, but 8 carries, 110 yards, and the aforementioned 65-yard touchdown when he just turned the Jets on, tightrope the sideline, and just outran everybody. Impressive for a 230-pound kid. All right, but let me ask you this: if everybody's healthy, Travion Henderson, Mayan Williams, Evan Pryor, Dallin Hayden, where do you see Chip fitting in this year?
Well, Ryan Day joked that the running back of the day was Archie Griffin, who scored that touchdown. So if they can get Archie back out there, then I think he's RB1. No,
third Heisman?
I think, yeah, that would be awesome. 30 years later or whatever it's been. Look, I think, yeah, I guess so. 75. Yeah,
before I was born, buddy.
Yeah, I'm really bad at math. Okay?
A long time ago.
Yeah, that's why I didn't keep stats up there today. Is math's not what I do. No, to answer your question, look, I don't know how, if healthy, Travion Henderson and Mayan Williams aren't 1A, 1B. When they were healthy last year, it was pretty effective. We didn't see that for very long because Travion got hurt pretty early in the season. But I think that those two are your guys, and I think you find ways to integrate these other guys in. It's going to be tough. 5 running backs is not easy. I think Chip is probably the number 3 back. Dallin has a chance at that, and obviously Evan Pryor, once he gets back in, I just think he's probably still a little ways away just because he's missed so much time. But we heard really good things in fall camp. So from what I've seen from Chip Trainum, I'm wondering why Ohio State didn't like him as a running back coming out of high school, and then again coming from Arizona State. I didn't go back and watch much of him at Arizona State because he was changing positions. So I'm just curious why they were so set on him being a linebacker based on what he's been able to do in practice and in games. I mean, we did see some of him last year in games, right? So he seems to be able to make some plays. I don't know how you don't use him, but I still think he would be behind Travion and competing with Dallin. Maybe it's even a week-to-week game plan thing in terms of how you use him on each given game. But I think he's probably in there at the 3rd running back spot if everyone's healthy.
All right, there are a couple more things I'm going to get to. We got Steve Helwagen up here, but he's working. A few more things I want to get to. Okay, let's start with I'm going to bunch these 2 guys together. The 2 5-star guys on defense, they're entering their second year. I think one of them has to be a starter and one of them needs to at least play a lot. That would be Sonny Styles, needs to be a starter in my opinion. Saw it again today. Why? Noah Rogers had a really nice Noah Rogers had a great touchdown. That wasn't even a good pass from Gebbia. Noah Rogers went down and got it, broke like 4 tackles, almost fumbled, but then got it, and then great touchdown by Noah Rogers. I really like him. But Sonny Styles lit him up. That wasn't any fault of Noah Rogers. Sonny Styles, I just love him. What are your thoughts on that? Obviously, Sonny Styles ran with the 2s all of spring. Proctor ran with the 1s throughout spring. Now, Sonny Styles and Lathan Ransom played the bandit both, but they don't have to be married to that. They can start both those guys if they need to. And then C.J. Hicks, I like Steele Chambers, as I was saying earlier in the show, Patrick, and he deserves to start and he will. But I think C.J. Hicks, there's got to be a role for him, just like Cody Simon and Steele rotated a lot last year at will till the end of the year when Steele really won the job. I think C.J. Hicks needs to play a lot. He looked really good to me today.
Yeah, I would say – to me, Sonny is the most interesting guy coming out here. And I didn't get a chance to ask Ryan Day. He did get asked about CJ Hicks. Just said, he said he's more than flashed.
More than flashed?
More than flashed, yeah. So he said he still needs to be more consistent, but that, more than flashed was the exact quote from him. So
that's good.
I think that's definitely positive. I don't know how you get him on the field as much. But I do think they figure out a way. Sonny Styles is the interesting one for me because look, if you think he's a bandit, Lathan Ransom, other than the Georgia play, was really pretty good last year, right?
Yeah.
So, okay, do you move him and have him take the Jeff Proctor role? That puts him back kind of at free safety, and I don't think you utilize his skills as well in that position. I think he's better when he can make plays closer to the line of scrimmage. I don't think he's necessarily a slot guy all the time. I think he can do that against tight ends and whatnot. We saw that in what they had planned for the Peach Bowl. I think it's an interesting situation. I honestly think that him running with the twos almost exclusively in spring is more of a motivational thing. Like, let's keep the carrot out there. Let's not hand it to him. He was a freshman last year. He should have been in high school. So yeah, I think it's certainly interesting how they figure that out, because look, this defense isn't like Ohio State's offense where, maybe there's a young player who's really good, but you can get by without playing that guy because maybe the guy in front of him is not quite as good, but good enough that you can continue to bring that guy along slowly. I think you've seen that with some of the wide receivers here in the past, that maybe, a guy sat his freshman year when at other schools he definitely would have played. On defense, they don't have that luxury. You got to play the best guys because you've got to get better. And I certainly agree with you that those are two of the best guys talent-wise. Now, Ryan Day, the Jim Knowles, all these guys, they see him every day. We've just seen a handful of stuff. So I will say we should defer to them. But I think you got to figure out a way, especially Sonny Styles. He's got to be on the field. He's a guy who's already started that clock early. And if you only have Sonny Styles playing really 1 year, I think that's just a waste of a talented player coming out of your backyard.
Defensive line, I had an excellent source reach out to me. He said, Captain Obvious. He goes, but this defensive line is going to just be fantastic this year. It's like, yeah, they are. I mean, you think about it. I mean, Tyleek Williams looks great. He's entering his third year. All those guys entering their third year. Mike Hall's entering his third year. JT Tumula entering his third year. Jack Sawyer entering his third year. Then you got the second-year guys that look good, like Caden Curry and Kenyatta Jackson. Hero Canoe looked good today to me. We'll see what I mean. Ty Hamilton's not a second-year guy, but he adds solid depth. They got Jaden McKenzie still around. Amari Abor got some run today with the twos, not a lot. Not a great depth there, Patrick, on the D-line, but my God, those top six guys are fantastic.
Yeah, Ryan Day was asked about the D-line, and he'd said it the other day that he was a little concerned about the depth, specifically defensive end. But he said that the starters have to be game changers. And that, to me, is a message to guys like JT Tuimoloau, who has been a game changer specifically that Penn State game, but not consistently enough, I don't think. And Jack Sawyer, who hasn't really lived up to it at this point. I think the guys in the interior, it's harder to be a noticeable game changer. I think they can certainly have an impact, but those guys on the edge, those starters, have to be really good. I think that helps the defense as a whole. The secondary doesn't have to do as much if you're getting after the quarterback, and you've got 2 5-star guys there. So you should be getting after the quarterback with regularity, especially, against some of the teams that Ohio State will play, even in the Big Ten this year. The middle, I do like what they've gotten there. We were talking, you and I, during the game about Michael Hall. Look, I think he's still dealing with whether he's still hurt or they're just being careful with him from the injury last fall, where he was obviously very limited. Unsure, but clearly he's not being used as much as he could be this spring if he's fully healthy. So that's a guy that when he was on the field last year was one of the better defensive tackles in the country. There's a reason they used baby Aaron Donald nickname with the kid, because he's done some things in practice that have really impressed people. And then the other guys you mentioned are all talented as well. So look, we know there's going to be a rotation there. I like kind of the 4 at defensive end. I like 3-ish deep, maybe 4 at defensive tackle. So, I think you'd like to have other depth just in case there's injuries. But I think if everyone's healthy, that's on paper a very good defensive line. Now they've got to play that way when it counts, right? And we've seen some of it. We just haven't seen it enough.
Well, thank you, sir. I'll let you get to work. We're going to bring Steve Helwagen in. Thank you, Patrick Murphy.
All right,
I'll
talk to you.
I asked if you were getting dizzy. One of our viewers on our live audience was like, Patrick, stop moving around. You're making me dizzy.
Oh, sorry. I'll just twirl a little bit.
Yes.
I've just been pacing, really, is what's happening.
Oh, okay.
I can't read the comments, though, because of my sunglasses. I can barely see it, but then I couldn't see it all, and I'd just be crying on the screen here.
They're all talking you up. Just the one guy you're making the one guy dizzy. So I like the panoramic views though. So what a beautiful day here.
I want everyone to see. Yeah.
Day. What an absolute perfect day here at the Horseshoe. All right.
Absolutely.
Patrick, thank you, sir.
All right. Talk to you later.
All right, let's bring in Steve Helwagen. All right, my buddy Steve Helwagen here. Steve.
Big Dave, what's going on?
I got to change the banner here because you're not Patrick Murphy.
I think the first spring game I went to may have been in the spring of 1986. I was a senior in high school, and I was coming to OSU in the fall. And that was cool. The spring of 87, I was at that one as a freshman and started covering this crap in 1990. And, as spring games go, this was another one. So there you go.
In 1985, I don't know if you remember this. I thought it was the spring game. I thought like maybe that year they just held it at Welcome Stadium. It turns out they were doing they did a couple of different spring games that year. But my first spring game was held at Dayton's Welcome Stadium, and that was in 1985. And if you guys, going into the 1984 season, you guys remember 84? That was a hell of a special year. They went to the Rose Bowl. That team included Chris Carter, Keith Byers, Mike Tomczak, and I'll never forget they were signing autographs after the spring game that year in Dayton. And Keith Byers had so many people around him signing autographs. He's from Dayton, and he was like, I gotta go. I'm gonna miss the bus. We're like, Keith, they're not gonna leave without you, man. They're not gonna leave you back here in Dayton, Keith. They'll hold the bus for you. But I have fond memories of that. So, all right, biggest story out of today. You want to start with Kyle McCord, or
Sure.
Okay, what are your impressions of McCord?
I think it was a slow start for him, and I think obviously going against the defense, I thought the defense played pretty well in the first half of this scrimmage. They had 26-10, I think, at halftime, and it really had only given up one play, and that was the Chip Triana long touchdown run right before halftime that kind of gave the offense a little bit of a spark, I guess. Then the second half, he came out. I think you texted me, Dave, around the end of the third quarter, and noted that he was 7 of 10, something like that in the third quarter.
6 of 10. I was wrong. It was 6 of 10. Yep.
Started to maybe find a little bit better rhythm. He and Marvin Harrison hit a couple passes in the first half, 2 passes for 62 yards on one drive, and they got down there, and I think they kicked a field goal at the end of that drive, or, they all kind of run together. I didn't have my sheet in front of me, but, I would give him a B, I would say, for today. I don't think it was A material. I think part of it was he was under duress. The offensive line didn't play particularly well. Which has been an ongoing situation, I think, for Ohio State this year in the spring, is that the offensive line is so inconsistent, and that was the word that Ryan Day used to describe it. I just posted all of the post-game videos I had with Coach Day. The quarterbacks Devin Brown and Kyle McCord did a press conference after the game. Also got Cody Simon, a linebacker, and Patrick got Denzel Burke, the cornerback. Those were all of the interviews that we got after the game, 4 players and head coach Ryan Day. And at least most of that will be with the game story right now that's on the front page of bucknuts.com. So
no Jim Knowles, huh?
No Jim Knowles.
No Jimmy Knowles.
But, I caught his interview with Big Ten Network at halftime, and he talked about how, they learned the defense last year. Now the byword is compete. And I thought for the most part, the defense really did compete today. And, I would give them a B+, A-, probably something like that. They did give up a couple plays, but I think those were younger guys later in the game that gave up, the 2 touchdown passes. So I'm not so, worried about that. But pass rush was good, I thought. Caden Curry, Kenyatta Jackson, Hero Canoe, a lot of Tyleek Williams, a lot of guys earned some credit today. They got the stars in the game. JT Tuimoloau and Marvin Harrison got him in and got him out. I guess from Kyle McCord, you just come away from this that you want to see more. You want to see better. You want to see more. And I think, with Emeka Egbuka, it looks a little different. With Xavier Johnson, it looks a little bit different.
They only had Marvin out there for like 3 plays.
Marvin, I don't think Kate Stover paid much at all.
No,
either,
and all the starting DBs were out there, and all the good backup DBs. Like I'm on record saying I think the backup safeties are better than the starting safeties. I like Latham Ransom, and Cam Martinez has had a good spring.
Yeah.
But Davison Igbinosun is a backup corner right now, a second-team corner. So not only is McCord throwing to, basically the guys he won't be throwing to during the season, but if the defense gets a finger on him, he's down. And then all the good DBs are out there, but not all the good wide receivers. But I agree with you. He's been okay. I don't think he's been bad. I don't think he's been great. Mostly during the spring, he's been okay.
Yeah.
So we'll see what happens. All right. You touched on this. So if you're a Buckeye fan out there, what's your concern level 1 to 10? 1, you're very, very concerned. 10, you're not concerned at all. Let's go the other way. 1, you're not concerned. 10, you're very concerned on the O-line. What's your concern level? 10, you're very concerned. 1, you're not concerned.
About a 6.
6?
Yeah.
Okay,
I'm not gonna overreact. I think Tegra Toshbola is a really good player at right tackle, and whether it's here or in Mahalski, I think they're going to be fine over there. Josh Fryer, to me, has got to have. I think he has the potential to be a really good player as well. I think he needs to have a really good next 3 months and I can't sit here and say what he needs to work on or anything. I just think he just needs to continue to grow and develop. And whether that's with his agility, whether that's with his strength, whatever it might be, whatever his deficiencies were in the spring, and the coaches have every inch of that videotape from the spring to say on this rep, this is what happened. This rep, this is what happened. They can really drill down. He has been put through the real crucible, I think, this spring of what it takes to play left tackle in the Big Ten, and particularly for Ohio State. And I think the next 3 months for he and Justin Fry to go back into the laboratory and get out there on the indoor field and work on the kick step and work on this and work on that and drill it down. He's got the ability to be the guy. It's just he's worked hard to get to this point. He's going to have to work just as hard or harder to be a legitimate left tackle in the Big Ten, I think, for Ohio State going forward. But I think the potential's there. I'm not giving up on him or anybody. I don't necessarily subscribe to this idea that they're going to find a panacea solution in the transfer portal. If somebody's in the transfer portal, is this really somebody that's going to come in and be a Jonah Jackson all Big Ten?
That's what I keep referencing. It's not going to be a superstar, but I think they can get a Jonah Jackson.
We'll see.
A tackle version of Jonah Jackson. I think they can
because
of NIL.
We'll see. Maybe NIL could be an enticement, but again, what exactly are you going to get? I wanted to ask Coach Day this, and I chickened out. I'm sorry, everybody.
What were you going to ask him?
I'm sorry.
What were you going to ask him?
Oh, I wanted to be that guy and pee on the cornflakes, in there after the spring game and say, "Oh, what a beautiful day this was." Hey, you got to run 4 guys out. Your 4 scholarships over.
Oh, that'll be easy.
You're
I can name about 10 right now.
Yeah,
I'm not going to.
Some of those 4th-year linemen who were in with the 3rd team in the 4th quarter, maybe that'd be a place I'd start.
Are there 3 kickers still on scholarship?
Jesus.
Man, I could name 10 right now that they could
see to add a transfer tackle. You've got to get rid of 5 people. I mean, we can name 10 right now. That's easy.
There's no way the coaches are worried about being 4 over or 5 over. Okay. No way. No way.
Probably not.
No way. In my opinion. All right. I asked Pat about this. I've been talking about this. Where are you at on Sonny Styles? Do you agree he needs to be a starter? Period. Are you not there yet? And CJ Hicks, where are you at on CJ Hicks? I think those guys are going to be stars.
They need to play.
Yes.
They need to play. They need to figure it out, and they need to play. And I can't say if that's 60 plays a game or 40 plays a game, whatever it is, but Sonny, to me, was as active as I've ever seen him as a football player. I used to go to Pick Central. I saw him in high school at least 4 times in his last 2 years. And what I was struck with was how, I don't know why they did this, but they played him 20 yards off the ball, and he was only involved in about 10% of the plays on defense because
I guess it worked. They won the title, right?
Well,
but still, I was like
sophomore year they won it.
Okay.
Lorenzo was still there, but they didn't win it either.
Well, he was only there a junior. Yeah,
junior year they didn't win it, and then senior year I guess
he wasn't there.
So
he was here.
Yeah, he was here
playing against Georgia. As
a
high school senior. Unbelievable.
They must have won it his freshman year because they didn't win it his sophomore year or his junior
year.
Okay,
so I was going to say that's bad coaching, but
they lost.
I said, well, they won the state title.
They lost to the Cincinnati team in the state championship game down at
Elder or Moeller or
Elder,
St. X
maybe down at the Crew practice facility down there.
Oh,
Whatever that was.
was it called like Palace Obeds? Or what was that called?
Fortress Obeds.
Fortress Obeds.
And
Fortress
then
Obeds.
the following year, they lost to UA, I think, in the regional finals.
Fortress.
Or whatever. So, any rate, and they didn't play last year at high school. But I think he's got to play. I think you got to just keep pushing him, because he's got the potential. I was kind of won over today by the way he kept coming back play after play in this game. Maybe the film will say something different, but and Hicks, he was involved from the first series on 11. He was out there and very active, so he's got to play too.
No doubt about it. He had a sack. He almost had an interception. He tackles well. I love CJ Hicks. All right, I'll get you out of here on this. Not a big story, but I thought it was interesting that I haven't talked about this yet, so I'm going to talk about this. Caleb Brown was out there. I thought he looked solid as a slot receiver, but he was the one taking the first reps as the kickoff returner. And they weren't going live, but it's still telling to me that he was the one going first as the kickoff returner. And then he was the first one out there as the punt returner, too. Jaden Ballard also got some run as punt returner. Muffed a punt. Jesse Mirko was booming punts today. It's another thing I haven't mentioned on the show. So much to get into. But Caleb Brown, it wasn't just today. I had heard, Steve, that there was a very good chance he was going to be the number one kick returner this year, and they like Caleb Brown in that role. I've also heard Emeka Egbuka's probably going to be the punt returner. Marvin Harrison Jr. even said that. So I wouldn't expect Caleb Brown to be the punt returner. I think that's going to be Emeka. But, man, it's been since 2014 since they've had a kick or punt return for a touchdown, Jalen Marshall. Might that drought end this year? We'll see. But I think Caleb Brown can at least be a good kickoff returner for the Buckeyes this year. If they're playing musical chairs at kickoff returner all of last year.
Yeah, one of the practices that we got to see this spring, it's obvious to me that Brian Hartline is pushing Caleb Brown to the moon, and that's on offense and in return game.
Right.
They love the football in Caleb Brown's hands, and so let's see how that manifests itself in the fall. A lot of times the punters, any days now, most teams are so good they hang it up there that it's hard to get a good return. You end up fair catching better than half the punts that are made. So, but I agree with Dave on the ones that are returnable. Get a couple first downs. Get 20 yards, get 30 yards. That one against Maryland last year that Xavier Johnson had, that really set them up to kind of put that game away.
Yep.
In the end. So that was huge. So in the big games, the special teams, as we've seen, make such a big difference. I mean, it won't matter against Indiana and some of these other teams that they're going to play, as we see year in and year out. But in the big games, when you go on the road to Michigan and Notre Dame and Wisconsin, if you can, every yard you can steal on special teams is huge. And Caleb Brown can be that guy. As I saw at the one practice, they were really pushing him hard on returns, and then over on offense, they were using him quite a bit. I think it was great to see Carnell Tate out there today making plays, and
Noah Rogers
caught a touchdown. Noah Rogers caught a touchdown. Those guys are coming. The next wave is coming. Here we go.
I totally agree with you on Caleb Brown. Of the second-year wide receivers, I think he's the best. And Kojo Antwi is solid. Keon Gray's had a bad drop today in the end zone. Would have been a touchdown, obviously. And then Caleb Burton's always hurt. So I think Caleb Brown's the one of those second-year wide receivers that has a chance. He is Steve Helwagen. Thank you very much, sir. I appreciate your time.
All right, Dave.
Get you out of here.
We're going to go get everything up on the internet.
That's what he does.
Enjoy.
Steve Helwagen, been covering this team. So it's funny. I'm one of the senior members. I'm one of the senior members of the beat, but it's like Tim May. Tim May's 1, you're 2. Yeah. I think I have the third most seniority, which is crazy. No, it's not crazy. I'm old. I'm acting like I'm a young guy. Am I missing somebody? People that actually come to everything. I'm not talking about people that used to be on the beat that maybe will come by like once a year. Tim May, you by far.
They won't get rid of us.
And then I'm barely ahead of Doug Lamarice. He came on right after me. Kevin Noon, a little bit after me. That's our impression. We're good friends with Kevin Noon. We're allowed to do that. We're allowed to do. Steve, how's that Kevin Noon impression go again? All right. There we go. Oh, okay, there we go. Fire away with questions for me. We're going to get to some questions. As promised, if you've already asked a question, I have not seen it. So if you want your question answered, please resubmit it. I really appreciate you guys joining us. We have a huge audience here. You guys are awesome. A lot of you, I recognize your names. You're very loyal listeners and viewers of the show. The Bucknuts Morning 5, I really appreciate you guys. All right. David on YouTube. I better put my old man reading glasses on here so I actually can read the I can usually read the questions even without my glasses, but this way I can read them a little bit clearer. All right. Biddle, scale of 1 to 10, how concerned are you about the offensive line? So Steve went 6. That surprised me a little bit. I'm more of in the not panicking, but I'm certainly no higher than a 5. I might go 4.5. I'm concerned. Oh, excuse me. I'm forgetting my own rules here. Excuse me. I would go at least 7, maybe 7.5. Sorry. 1 being, I keep forgetting my own rules here. 1, I'm not concerned at all. 10, I'm very concerned, right? I'm going to go 7, 7.5. I'll go 7.5. I'm concerned. I'm not panic level. I'm not a 9. I'm not a 10. Not even an 8. I'm a 7, 7.5. I'm concerned. Steve was a 6. I'll be happy with that. If they can be, to me, a 6 means you're at least a decent offensive line. It does help that both starting guards are back. That's huge, but the other 3 guys will find out. I think Carson Hinsman's going to be a really good player here, but as a redshirt freshman, how's he going to be as a starting center? He's going to have ups and downs regardless. Luke Whippler did as well, and he ended up being a really good center. He had ups and downs as a redshirt freshman, so Carson Hinsman will. And then if they don't get a tackle, if Steve's right, and they don't get a tackle in the portal, at least one that's not Jonah Jackson level, even though we're talking about a tackle, not a guard, can Tegra or Zen lock that job down? I mean, Tegra looks like, I always say that Kenyatta Jackson looks like he's straight out of central casting for a DN. I mean, Tegra looks like he's straight out of central casting for a right tackle. So, but again, redshirt freshman, didn't enroll till June. How good is he going to be? So, all right. I agree with that, Terry, on YouTube. The fact that Ryan Day handpicked Kyle McCord makes you feel better. I agree with that. Let's not forget that. Ryan Day, I think until proven otherwise, now you guys can do whatever you want. I'm not telling you what to think. In my opinion, until proven otherwise, I don't think people should question Ryan Day's quarterback recruiting. Like people are saying, oh, he missed on McCord. It should have taken McCarthy. Well, as Sue posted earlier, I guess I didn't see this. Apparently McCarthy thought he was playing TCU again today in Michigan spring game or whatever it was. I assume it was today. Maybe it wasn't. And he threw 3 interceptions. Again, he thought it was like the playoff semifinals again. I know he played well here, but it's easy to play quarterback when, your wide receivers are open by 30 yards. Anyway, all season last year, he couldn't complete the deep ball. He had a good game against Ohio State and then played terrible against TCU. And Ryan Day picked Kyle McCord over him. So I agree with you. Terry, I agree with you. Another one from Terry. I've talked about this. Does C.J. Hicks start this year? I don't think he's going to start because that would entail beating out Steele. Okay, I think Steele's going to start. I don't think it's just a seniority thing. Steele's a good will linebacker and played well last year, especially at the end of the year. Speaking of the Georgia game, go watch that Georgia game. Steele played really well. In his home state, had an interception. So, but that being said, C.J. Hicks needs to play a lot, okay? And maybe Steele will get banged up. You never know. And then C.J. will be a starter. But is C.J. going to beat out Steele? I would say the odds are not extremely low, but I would definitely say it's more likely than not that Steele will be the starter, okay? So, but I think C.J. Hicks is going to play a lot. Sonny Styles is the one that I think has to be a starter. Tyler on YouTube. Dave, I have a question. Why do people overreact to McCord's play right now? That's what we do, right? I mean, I'm trying not to. I think I'm being, at least for my standards, somewhat level-headed. But seriously, that's what fans do. I'm guilty of it in other sports. I feel like I've covered so many spring games, not as many as Helwagen has, but I've covered a ton of spring games. And, man, I mean, we call it the Bam Childress Award, the Torian Washington Award. So, listen, I'm well-versed on taking everything in the spring game with not a grain of salt, but a whole shaker of salt, maybe a whole ocean full of salt. But, yeah, I mean, fans are going to overreact. We do it all the time in every sport. And in spring games in the past. Do you guys remember? And Ryan Day referenced this. So it would have been, 4 years ago? Has it been that long? 4 years ago in the spring game to the day. Justin Fields struggled. People are like, oh, shit, is Justin Fields going to be ready to be the starting quarterback of this team? Yeah. And I'm not saying Kyle McCord's going to be Justin Fields. My point is, I agree with your sentiment that people are overreacting based on the spring game. But to play devil's advocate, it wasn't just a spring game where I thought Kyle McCord looked okay. It was pretty much all a spring when we were out there. Now, we saw a scrimmage where he just turned it on in the second half and just balled out. And I'm like thinking, if he can harness that, what he did for those, 15 plays in that live scrimmage, if he can harness that, he's going to be really, really good this year. Not in the future, like this year. But he's got to harness that. He's got to be consistent. He's been too erratic, not crazy erratic, but just He's been okay during spring. I keep saying it, but I think it hits the nail on the head. He's been okay for spring. He hasn't been great. He hasn't been terrible. Been okay. And I agree, he's got to be much better than that in the season. You can't have okay quarterback play as a starter at Ohio State. But again, I have to see it to believe it to think Ryan Day not only doesn't have a good quarterback on this team, but is going to pick he handpicked all these guys. He doesn't have a good quarterback. I'm not buying it. And the story has not been written on Devin Brown either. If McCord somehow does fall in his face, Devin Brown will be right there. We'll be right there. All right, here we go. I'm being way too long-winded. I got to scroll up to see your questions. Okay. Okay. Yeah, Buckeye 80 is asking a question a lot of people are wondering, myself. Why can't we just play our best players on defense, Dave? Yeah, Sonny Styles is your prime example. I still think Sonny's going to start. I really do. I think Sonny's going to start. Yeah, I mean, if the starting receivers were, and this is from Greg on Facebook, McCord would have done even better today. He had Marvin in there just for a little bit to answer your question. Jaden Ballard played, but Jaden Ballard's not a starting receiver. The starting receivers today were Marvin Harrison for 5 plays, 3 catches, and which I totally endorse. We don't need Marv, even though they weren't going live when Marv was out there. I don't need Marv getting hurt in a spring game. You're already down Emeka and Julian and X. Ballard was out there with the ones to start the game, and so was Carnell Tate, who only had 1 catch for short yardage till the fourth quarter. Then he had a really good fourth quarter, including a touchdown. So that was good to see. But yeah, it would help McCord if he was throwing his starting wide receivers, and if the starting DBs were not all out there, and the backup DBs. The DBs are completely healthy, and they're other than Jahad Carter. So, but McCord's got to be better. There's no doubt about it. Sue, has Jaden Ballard helped himself up the depth chart today? Nice one-handed grab. That was a fantastic grab. It's tough, Sue. I think it's going to be tough for Jaden to play a lot this year, because if you're not in that top 4, we know Heartline's not going to play you that much unless it gets to the fourth quarter and it's a blowout. Because, I use the Marvin Harrison Jr. example from 2 years ago all the time. I mean, he was really good as a true freshman and didn't even play till the Rose Bowl. And the only reason he played in the Rose Bowl is because Olave and Wilson sat out. And that was Marvin Harrison Jr. I know he's a true freshman and Ballard's going to be a third-year sophomore, but I still think the example holds. It's the same thing when people ask me, is Carnell Tate going to play a lot this year? I'm like, well, if he needed to, I think he could play well. But you ask me, will he play a lot this year, Carnell Tate? I would say no, because he's not going to be in that top 4 unless guys get hurt. Again, Marvin Harrison Jr. hardly played at all in 2021 until the Rose Bowl. And what happened? 3 touchdowns. So he obviously was ready to play. It's just Heartline's philosophy, and I subscribe to this. I get why he does it. Heartline's philosophy is, you guys have heard me say this before, if I'm taking Marvin Harrison Jr. off the field for you, you better be at least as good as him. If I'm taking Emeka Egbuka off the field for you, you better be at least as good as him. So Julian Fleming applies Xavier Johnson, although Jaden is an outside receiver and X is inside. Now, one thing Jaden has that the other guys don't have, he can take the top off the defense, which is why we're all intrigued by him. I've heard he's got to become more consistent with his hands, Sue, but that was a great catch today. Has he helped himself? Yes. I still think he's probably entering camp as the 5th receiver in the pecking order, probably. Can he beat out Julian Fleming for that 3rd or 4th spot? If there's an injury, he'll be in there as the top 4, no doubt about it, assuming it's not Carnell Tate. But, yeah, I think he helped himself, but I still would pump the brakes on thinking Ballard's going to have a big role this year. Do I think McCord got outplayed by Tristan Gebbia? No, I don't. I don't think he got outplayed by Tristan Gebbia. Dream time, relaxation. Dave, what is your early prediction on the Buckeyes record this year and if they will win a national championship this year? Ooh, cutting right to the chase, my man. Prediction for record, I'll say they go 12-1, but win the Big Ten championship and go to the playoff. Is this going to be the final year we're going to have a 14 playoff, or is that, I can't remember if that's a couple years down the road. It's one of the final years if it's not the final year. I think they're going to get to the college football playoff. I'm not going to predict a natty. I hope I'm wrong. I'll say they get to the playoff but fall short of the natty. But I think they're going to beat Michigan. I think they're going to go 12-1. I don't know who the loss is going to be. I think they will have one slip up, but they'll still be Big Ten champions. Probably win a rematch with Wisconsin in the Big Ten championship game. Luke Fickell, that's going to be so weird seeing Luke Fickell, especially if they play him twice, right? Man, how about the schedule this year too, guys? I mean, we got it. at Notre Dame. Start off with a Big Ten game at Indiana. You go at Notre Dame. At Wisconsin. You got to play Penn State and Michigan State. Maryland's going to be good on offense this year with Tagovailoa back and other guys they got coming back. You got to go to Michigan, of course. That is as tough of a schedule as I can remember. So we'll see what happens. That's my prediction. Now, what I hope happens is they win the national championship. They go 15-0 and win it all. I don't even care if it's 15-0. Go 14-1. There you go. Thank you, Sue. I thought so. Go with your first instinct, right? I thought this is the last year. Okay. Thank you. 9th hardest schedule in college football, according to the metrics. I'm sure, according to Sue, I won't be surprised if it's better than that. Kyle Holloway on YouTube is not feeling the love for the Buckeyes this year. 8-4. Kyle, if you really believe that, I think the over-under for wins is like 10.5. So if you're going to take 8, they could win 10, and you'd still win your bet if you take the under. So if you really think they're going to only win 8 games, or even if you think they're going to win 9 games or 10 games, take the under and make yourself a little cash. They're not going 8-4. I'll bet Steve's car they're not going to go 8-4 this year. Hunter Williams on YouTube. This is one thing we all said in the media too, throughout spring. Didn't realize how huge Jelani Thurman is, says Hunter. That guy is a giant. I know, right? He's listed at 6'6", 253. He looks bigger than that. He's going to be a stud here. He's another one. I don't think he's going to play a lot as a true freshman. You got Cade Stover, you got Joe Royer, you got G. Scott Jr. But I think they're still going to – I don't think they're going to redshirt him, but he's not going to play a lot. Larry, I kind of covered this. Is Ballard better than Fleming? I think it's close. That's why I'm not ruling it out that Ballard could beat out Fleming for that 3rd or 4th spot. Xavier Johnson's going to be in that top 4, but he's kind of a jack of all trades. So if you want to talk about that's why I say the 3rd or 4th spot, So it would take an injury to one of the top guys for Ballard to play a lot, in my opinion, or he would have to beat out Julian Fleming. So is Ballard better than Fleming? According to the coaches, he wasn't last year because Fleming played and Ballard really didn't. So at least last year, Fleming was ahead of Ballard, according to Brian Hartline. Can Ballard change that? We'll find out. Ballard was limping a bit after that one catch. I don't think I saw that. This is one of the things this is why I need to rewatch the game when I get home. Yeah, Caleb Brown actually spells it with a K. I'm not trying to be a grammar nerd, just letting you know. Caleb Brown with the K looked really nice today, says Israel Sharp on YouTube. Routes shifty. Yes, Steve and I talked about that. In fact, I'm sure your question was up there before we were talking about that, or your comment. Yeah, I thought Caleb Brown looked good. He's looked good all spring. Probably not going to play a ton this year, but he's a guy that they like as, a backup slot receiver. And they really like him on special teams. He was taking the first reps with the kickoff returning team. He was the kickoff returner, the main kickoff returner. And I'll be surprised if he's not the main kickoff returner this year. He was also taking the first reps as the first team punt returner. And as I said earlier, if you missed it, Emeka Egbuka is probably going to be the punt returner this year, but Caleb Brown at least is going to be the backup punt returner. Jaden Ballard's in the mix too at punt returner. He had a muff today, but Jesse Mirko boomed the hell out of that kick. So, man, you guys are awesome. Yeah, I agree. Zone 6, properly named. You talking about a wide receiver here on YouTube. Zone 6 says Noah Rogers is going to be good. I agree. Tate, and rightfully so. Carnell Tate's gotten all the buzz this spring. Again, rightfully so, but both things can be true. Carnell Tate's going to be a future stud, and so is Noah Rogers. I loved his film coming out of high school against really good competition. He wasn't a big, camp circuit guy. Even though he was almost a 5-star, it still felt like he was underrated because you wonder if he went, to all these camps and stuff. Not that he didn't go to any, but combines and stuff. Yeah, there you go. Another Noah Rogers comment. This is from Mozart's Ghost on YouTube. Good to hear from Mozart's Ghost as usual. I can't even pronounce Mozart right now. Noah Rogers looked big out there. Styles usually makes receivers look small. That's exactly right. Noah Rogers listed at 6'2", Sonny's 6'4", and Noah Rogers is every bit of 6'2". He looks closer to 6'3" to me. So, yeah, he does look big out there. A kid that should be getting ready for his high school prom. Looking good out there. I like this one. Oh, fellow Beaver Creek Beaver. Counselor Burke, good to hear from you. One of my good friends. Big Buckeye fan, Christopher D. Burke checking in. Young man I've known for a long time. We go back to high school together. Go back to elementary school together, in fact. Go back to youth sports together. All right, let me get to your question instead of just talking about my buddy Chris Burke. All right, based on what you saw and what you know, what is the depth chart for running backs 1 through 5? Hashtag Go Beavers. That's Beaver Creek Beavers, not Oregon State, just to let everybody know. Nothing against Tristan Gebbia. I'm talking about the Beaver Creek Beavers. 1 through 5, I love it, Burke. It's tough. So I'm going to put, just because he's coming off the injury, I'm going to put Pryor at 5. Now, I like Evan Pryor a lot, but that's a serious injury you're coming off, a torn patellar tendon. He's going to be fine to start the season, but he's still coming off a very serious injury. So I'll put Evan Pryor at 5. Man, it's so tough. Okay, I'm going to go the opposite. If he's healthy, which he was not last year, everybody's calling him soft, had the broken foot. We saw what he could do as a freshman. He needs to get better with his vision. But if he's healthy, I think TreVeyon Henderson will trot out there with the starters when they go out to start the Indiana game. So I'll say TreVeyon Henderson will start the season as the starter. But I like all these guys, so I'm not saying anybody has the job locked up. But I think Trey will get the first reps when the offense trots out there against Indiana. 2, man, this is tough. I'm going by what I think the coaches are going to do. Not necessarily that I disagree with this, but I think this is what the coaches are going to do. I think TreVeyon will be the starter. I think Mayan will be the number 2 back to start the year. We saw him take the first reps today. He was the starting running back today. And you could almost flip a coin between Chip and Dallin. I would have said Dallin entering spring, because I really like Dallin. And he didn't do anything where I'm down on him this spring. I think he had a really good spring, Dallin did. But Chip just impressed me all spring. I almost want to cheat and say tie for number 3, but I won't cheat. I'll go Chip 3, Dallin 4. I almost feel bad putting Dallin 4 because I like Dallin a lot. But this goes to show they were so decimated with injuries last year at running back. We've never seen a running back room that decimated at Ohio State. Never, ever. And I mean, they're down to playing Xavier Johnson and like Mitch Rossi at running back in the college football playoff after having 6 weeks of rest. We've never seen anything like that. This is incredible if you look at it. Not that my depth chart is going to be what it is. Let's say it is in whatever order. You got TreVeyon Henderson, Mayan Williams, you got Chip Trayanum, Dallin Hayden, and Evan Pryor. Those guys can stay reasonably healthy. That's a hell of a running back room. Yeah, Doug. This is why it was an excellent question from my friend. I'm not just saying that because Burke and I go way back, and he's a good dude. It was a great question. It was a tough question. And Doug's saying Dallin Hayden is going to be hard to keep off the field. And I have him as the 4th back right now. I agree. I mean, he's good. We saw what he could do against Maryland last year. There were rumors that he had some ball security issues in practice. I don't even know if they were rumors, because Ryan Day would say, when we would ask him about it, he wouldn't say he had ball security issues, but he would say code for that. Stuff like, well, it's most important thing as a running back to make sure you're handing the ball to the official after every play. Basically saying you can't fumble the ball. That's easy to read between the lines there. That there were fumbling issues in practice with Dallin Hayden, which is why probably Chip Trayanum got the start against Michigan. We all forget Chip was the starting running back against Michigan. Dave, this is from Dreamtime again. Dreamtime Relaxation. Dave, is Carrico most likely transferring out? I wouldn't go that far. I mean, he's got a lot of second-team reps, look good today. I think they're going to keep him around. 3 years of eligibility left. Now, maybe if he looks like he's not in the mix this time next year, he'll transfer. I think with 3 years of eligibility left, he'll stay. We'll see. Doug thinks my running back depth chart is on point. Thank you, Doug. Let's go to Mike on Facebook, Mike Allen on Facebook. What are my opinions of the cornerbacks today? I thought they were good. I thought Denzel Burke did what he's done all spring. He played really well. He's going to have a good year as a third year, as a junior, third-year guy. We see it all the time. Third-year corners at Ohio State ball out. He's going to be one of them, his money year. I like Jordan Hancock, even I don't know if he did that much today. I'll have to go back and watch. I love Davis and Igbinosun. I like Jair Brown. They had Ryan Turner in there running with the slot safety, it's slot safety, which is really hybrid corner safety spot. I like the corners a lot. Jermaine Matthews is a true freshman, solid. Even though he's a true freshman, he had solid depth and rolling early. I love the top 4 corners, especially the top 3. I love the top 4. I like Jair Brown a lot. I'll just say I love the top 4. I love Denzel Burke, Jordan Hancock, Davis and Igbinosun, and Jair Brown. I think they're good to go at corner. Corner was another position. We've never seen Ohio State that decimated at a position ever that we saw last year. Now, you go into a season with only 6 scholarship cornerbacks, and 2 of them are true freshmen, and one of them's a redshirt freshman. That's what you get. 2 guys get hurt, and then you're in dire straits. But All right. Well, thank you. Dreamtime is saying thanking me. Well, thanks to all of you guys. I appreciate it so much. Went for almost an hour and a half here. You guys are awesome. We're going to end the show here. Yeah. Brian says Hicks looks very good. I agree. CJ Hicks. Again, if you're just tuning in, CJ Hicks needs to play this year. Not necessarily start over Steele, because Steele's really good too. CJ needs to play, and I think he will. And Sonny Styles needs to start, not play off the bench. Start. Rarely leave the field type of guy. All right. Appreciate you guys very, very, very much. Thanks to the Dean of Ohio State Football Recruiting, Bill Kurelic. Thanks to Patrick Murphy. Thanks to Steve Helwagen. Thanks to all of you so much. I appreciate it. I am Dave Biddle. The gray, the defense prevails in the spring game over the offense. 40 to 31. 40 to 31 is your final score, including Archie's touchdown. But again, I think the scoring was set up to, we joked, Ryan Day always favoring the defense and ignoring the offense. Funny joke, huh? Setting the defense up to win the game. Ryan Day always worry about the defense, not the offense. But seriously, I thought one thing I think they should have done is that the offense got 2 consecutive first downs. They should have got a point. If you get 2 straight first downs, you get a point. Because if the defense gets you off the field, they get a point. If you get a 3 and out, they get 3 points. They get a sack, they get 2 points. I think if the offense gets 2 straight first downs, they should have got a point. Whatever. I didn't like the scoring system, but who am I to say that? Appreciate you guys so much. Thank you for joining me. Keep it locked to Bucknuts. A lot of recruiting stuff, a lot of more comments and commentary and stories and videos on the spring game. Steve and Pat are working on that right now. I'm going to work on some of that as well. Thanks, guys. Appreciate you so much. Go Bucks. The season's going to be here before we know it. I hope you guys believe my lie. No, it will. It'll be here before we know it. Enjoy the rest of your spring. Enjoy your summer. And then we'll see you on the Bucknuts Morning 5. I know I recognize most of the names in here. So yeah, I thank you guys. Appreciate it very much. Go Bucks. Thanks for joining me here on What We Learned Live.